Welcome to the deep dive. If you're tuning in today, you are likely navigating a pretty demanding schedule.
Yeah, a very demanding schedule.
Right. You're the kind of person who wants to stay sharp and gain knowledge efficiently, but you absolutely do not want to be buried under, an avalanche of dense information overload.
No one has time for that.
Exactly. You are looking for the insights, the practical takeaways, and the shift in perspective, all delivered in a way that actually respects your time. So you are in the perfect place. Today, we're cracking open a source that is, well, frankly, it's a little unorthodox for us.
It really is.
It is a transcript from a show called Speak English with Class.
Which, at first glance, is a highly structured, fairly rudimentary educational program.
It is. It's a curriculum specifically designed to teach English vocabulary to non-natal speakers. The transcript follows two main individuals. There's Jennifer, who is navigating life as a student, and Daniel, who is a working professional.
Right. Two very different lifestyles.
Yeah. And they spend this particular lesson detailing their daily routines, literally hour by hour. And woven throughout their conversation is a vocabulary expert named Crystal.
She's the one who periodically pauses the discussion, right?
Exactly. She pauses it to highlight the specific English words they're using to describe their days.
It is a very standard format for language acquisition. You take a universally understood human experience.
Like just getting through a Tuesday.
Yeah, exactly. Just a normal Tuesday. And you use it as a recognizable framework to introduce new language.
But our mission today is to completely look past the English lesson. We aren't here to learn grammar. We're here because this source, while explicitly designed to teach basic vocabulary, accidentally provides something incredibly sophisticated.
It's actually amazing how that happened.
Right. Because they are breaking down their days so granularly for the sake of the lesson, Jennifer and Daniel inadvertently hand us a masterclass in executive functioning. It is a highly practical blueprint for how completely different people structure their lives to maximize balance, maintain their energy, and keep a grip on their time.
What's fascinating here is that by analyzing the specific language and the deliberate habits they use to outline these routines, we can uncover the underlying psychological strategies they are employing.
Yes.
The curriculum introduces these words as mere vocabulary, but if we look closer, the words they choose to label their actions actually reveal the armor they use to protect their time and their mental bandwidth.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to see that armor in action, we have to start at the very beginning of the day. Jennifer and Daniel are operating in completely different environments.
Entirely different.
Jennifer is a student, which means her environment is inherently chaotic. Her mornings are structured around rotating class schedules and, finding study time. Daniel is a working professional, so his mornings are dictated by the rigid demands of his job and his corporate inbox.
Right.
Yet the way they launch into their respective days shares a very specific kind of intentionality.
I want to actually push back slightly on the word intentionality there.
Oh, really?
Just simply because it makes their mornings sound like a purely philosophical exercise. What they're actually doing right out of the gate is purely physiological. They are performing biological triage.
Biological triage. That is a great way to frame it. Let's look at the timeline. Jennifer wakes up around 7:00 a.m., and her entire approach to waking up is centered on a gentle, gradual start.
Yeah, she doesn't rush it.
The very first action she takes, before her feet even hit the floor, is to take a deliberate moment to breathe and stretch. In the source, the vocabulary expert Crystal naturally focuses on the literal definition of stretch for her students.
Extending the limbs to loosen muscles.
Exactly. But from a performance lens, Jennifer isn't just loosening muscles.
No, she's using a deliberate physical action to signal to her nervous system that it is time to transition from a state of rest to a state of wakefulness. It is a physiological bridge.
A bridge, right?
She is actively avoiding that panicked, cortisol-spiking jolt out of bed that so many people default to when the alarm goes off.
Now, contrast that with Daniel. His corporate job requires him to start earlier, so his alarm goes off at 6:30 a.m. His very first action is different from Jennifer's, but it hits that exact same physiological note you mentioned. The first thing he does is drink a glass of water.
Yes.
And the lesser pivots to the word hydrate here.
Which is such a critical detail to focus on.
Yeah.
He has been asleep for hours, meaning his body is in a state of depletion. By choosing to hydrate immediately, Daniel is addressing a fundamental biological deficit before the world can demand anything of him. It's a preemptive strike.
It is remarkably simple, but it sets a foundation. And despite these slightly different initial triggers, their routines instantly converge on a shared ritual. Both Jennifer and Daniel head straight to the bathroom to brush their teeth and wash their faces.
A classic routine.
Daniel specifically notes that this action sets the tone for the day ahead. Jennifer calls it a refreshing start.
Those shared rituals act as the anchor points of a morning routine. Regardless of whether you are heading into a massive lecture hall or a high-stakes corporate meeting, those basic acts of personal care ground you.
Yeah.
They aren't just about hygiene. They are small, highly achievable tasks that immediately put a psychological checkmark in the win column for the day. You are building momentum before you've even left the house.
Building momentum, yes. Because after personal care, they both turn their attention to fueling up, both physically and mentally. Jennifer opts for what the curriculum labels a light breakfast.
Right, keeping it light.
She usually goes for oatmeal or toast to get her energy up before classes. Daniel says breakfast is absolutely essential for him too, though his needs are a bit more robust. He goes for eggs with toast or sometimes a smoothie.
Notice the strategic alignment there. They are both consuming calories, but they are doing it in a way that matches their specific environmental demands without weighing themselves down. It is caloric efficiency.
And once the physical fueling is done, they transition to the mental setup. After breakfast, they both review their upcoming responsibilities. Daniel checks his emails and his to-do list.
A very corporate habit.
Very. And Jennifer does the exact same thing with her class schedule to make sure she is ready for the day ahead. She explicitly tells the host that it is nice to feel organized before jumping into things.
This is where we see the profound psychological benefit of these morning setups. These distinct routines showcase different lifestyles, but they share the exact same outcome, creating a calm, organized launchpad. Checking a class schedule or to-do list isn't just administrative task management.
What is it then?
It is about seizing control. When you review your day before you were actively caught in the middle of it, you transition from a reactive state where the day happens to you to a proactive state where you happen to the day.
You are building a proactive launchpad. And the vocabulary words highlighted in the lesson stretch: hydrate, light breakfast, to-do list. These are simply the tactical labels Jennifer and Daniel use to construct that launchpad.
They're establishing the terms of engagement for the rest of their waking hours.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because that proactive, highly organized morning mindset is fantastic, but it inevitably collides with reality. And that collision usually happens right in the middle of the day. The afternoon is where the best laid plans usually fall apart and the initial morning motivation evaporates.
The afternoon is the ultimate stress test for any framework.
And the friction they face is intense, albeit very different. Jennifer is managing long periods of intensive academic focus, juggling consecutive classes and grueling study sessions. Daniel says his afternoons are typically the most demanding part of his day, packed back-to-back with corporate meetings and heavy project work. Yet, despite these completely different arenas, their strategies for surviving the afternoon friction are identical.
They both rely on the strategic deployment of breaks.
They both absolutely insist on stepping away from their workspaces. Jennifer mentions that if she is in the middle of a long study session, she forces herself to take short breaks to stretch and move around to keep her mind fresh.
Yes.
Daniel echoes this completely. He says that even if it's just for a few minutes, stepping away from his desk to stretch or grab a snack is non-negotiable.
It is telling that the chosen vocabulary words introduced in the lesson here are recharge and regroup.
Yes, Daniel steps away to recharge, and they take a moment to regroup their thoughts for the next phase of the day.
What is vital to understand from an executive functioning standpoint is that taking these breaks is not a sign of weakness, nor is it a lapse in discipline. It is an engineered component of their productivity.
Because everyone hits that wall.
Exactly. Think about the typical afternoon slump. The average person's instinct when they hit a wall at 2:30 p.m. is to pour a third cup of coffee, stare blankly at a spreadsheet, and rely on sheer willpower, hoping the work will miraculously get done.
We've all been there.
Jennifer and Daniel's approach is to simply admit a temporary defeat, walk away, and actually reset the system. They recognize that human focus is a finite, depletable resource. You cannot simply pull water from an empty well. You have to stop and refill it.
And a major component of that refilling process is lunch. Both of them are highly analytical about what they consume in the middle of the day. They usually eat around noon, and they both prioritize keeping the meal physically light.
That's key.
Jennifer says she usually opts for a salad or a sandwich, specifically because eating anything heavy makes her feel sluggish.
That word, sluggish, isn't just a vocabulary term to memorize. It is the enemy they are actively defending against.
Exactly. Daniel agrees completely with Jennifer's strategy. He says his go-to lunch is a quinoa salad with veggies or a turkey sandwich. Keeping the meal healthy and light is his specific, targeted tactic to avoid the mid-afternoon energy slump.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, what we are observing here is the fundamental difference between time management and energy management. That is a massive paradigm shift.
How so?
Time management operates on the flawed assumption that all hours in a day are created equal. Energy management recognizes the biological reality that an hour of work at 9:00 a.m. feels completely different and yields different results than an hour of work at 3:00 p.m.
Right.
By deliberately choosing to eat light meals like a quinoa salad or a turkey sandwich, they are actively protecting their biological energy levels.
Yeah.
They are anticipating the natural circadian dip in the afternoon and preemptively mitigating it.
Which perfectly sets up the next phase of their afternoon strategy, tackling the heavy lifting. Because they have protected their energy, both Jennifer and Daniel use the post-lunch window to target their most important, focus-intensive work.
Yes, they don't waste that window.
Daniel says he tackles his bigger assignments, focusing on key projects that require his full attention, and tries to knock them out, a great informal phrase the lesson highlights. He wants to execute those tasks while he still has the cognitive bandwidth to be productive.
They are perfectly aligning their most challenging cognitive tasks with the specific windows where they have successfully preserved their physical and mental energy. It is a highly efficient use of resources.
I want you to reflect on that for a second. Think about your own afternoons. When the friction hits, do you try to just stubbornly push through the slump? Do you rely on caffeine and guilt to force productivity out of a tired brain?
Many people do.
Or do you strategically step away to regroup, like Jennifer and Daniel? Are you trying to manage your time, or are you actually managing your energy?
It requires a significant amount of self-awareness to make that shift, but it completely changes the output of your day.
So what does this all mean? We have launched the day with biological triage and proactive planning. We have navigated the friction of the afternoon by relentlessly managing our energy. How do we successfully power down a system that has been running hot all day? Let's look at the evening wind down.
Which is arguably the most critical phase of the entire framework, because the way you power down today directly dictates the quality of your launch pad tomorrow.
The transcript details this transition beautifully. The evening is when both Jennifer and Daniel deliberately shift gears. For Jennifer, the academic pressure comes off, and she focuses on taking a short walk or doing some light stretching after dinner to de-stress.
Yeah.
The curriculum highlights the word unwind here. Daniel relates to this entirely. He makes specific time to relax after the corporate demands of his workday fade, whether that is listening to music or also going for a walk.
Look at how deeply physical their unwinding process is. They aren't just collapsing onto a couch and sitting perfectly still. They are using gentle, rhythmic movement walking, light stretching, to physically process and flush out the lingering cortisol and stress accumulated throughout the day.
Then there's the matter of dinner. Daniel eats around 7:00 p.m., keeping it simple but satisfying. He mentions meals like grilled salmon with veggies or a stir-fry with rice.
Healthy, solid choices.
Jennifer's dinner is usually quick and easy, something like pasta with vegetables or a rice bowl. But it is what happens immediately after dinner that is truly striking to me.
The return of the skincare ritual.
Yes. Once dinner is cleared away, they both make a deliberate point to brush their teeth and wash their faces again. Jennifer notes that it is a small part of her routine, but it makes her feel refreshed. But Daniel provides this incredible, powerful metaphor for the action.
I love this part.
He tells the host that brushing his teeth and washing his face feels like pressing the reset button after a long day. It is a simple, tactical way to officially shift his brain into relaxation mode.
The symmetry of their days here is just brilliant. Think back to the very beginning of the transcript. They woke up, and what was the anchor point? They brushed their teeth and washed their faces to signal to the body that the day had begun.
Right.
Now, 12 hours later, they perform the exact same physical routine, but this time it serves as a psychological cue to let go.
It functions as the ultimate set of bookends for their day. The morning wash tells the nervous system, let's go. The evening wash tells the nervous system, we are officially off the clock.
Consistency in the evening is just as vital for long-term balance as consistency in the morning. That physical cue tells the brain that the relentless demands of the schedule are over and it is safe to power down.
And from that point on, the final preparations for sleep begin. Both Jennifer and Daniel share a crucial habit here. They actively avoid screens before bed. Instead of doom scrolling on their phones or getting sucked into television, they choose to intentionally wind down.
Which is huge.
They replace the digital stimulation with analog activities. They read a book, or in Daniel's case, he brews a cup of caffeine-free herbal tea.
Notice the complete avoidance of anything that might spike their nervous system back up. There is no blue light from screens to trick their brains into thinking it's daytime. There is no caffeine. They are relying solely on calming, low-stakes activities.
Cleaning a runway.
Exactly. They're essentially building a very long, very smooth runway for sleep. They don't expect their brains to go from 100 miles an hour to zero the moment their head hits the pillow. They gradually decrease their speed from a post-dinner walk to washing their face to drinking herbal tea to reading a few pages of a book until they naturally and inevitably arrive at sleep.
And finally, they lock in that recovery by sticking to highly consistent bedtimes. Jennifer aims to be in bed around 10:00 p.m. so she is fully rested for her morning classes. Daniel aims for 10:30 p.m., specifically noting how much more resilient and capable he feels the next day when he secures a full night's rest.
Which brings us right back to the beginning. The runway for sleep tonight is the launch pad for tomorrow morning.
So as we pull all of these seemingly basic pieces together from this English learning transcript, a remarkably clear picture emerges. The source material proves that daily routines are not meant to be rigid, suffocating cages designed to trap us in a state of endless, miserable productivity.
That is a very common and very damaging misconception about why we build routines in the first place.
Exactly. Instead, this conversation shows us that routines are frameworks. They are personalized, flexible structures that actually grant us balance. They create designated, protected spaces for us to work intensely, yes, but they also create equally protected spaces to recharge, to eat thoughtfully, and to rest deeply.
Yes.
Ultimately, these frameworks are what put us in control of our own lives. By deciding how we triage our mornings, how we protect our afternoon energy, and how we build a runway for our evenings, we refuse to let the sheer momentum of the day dictate terms to us.
We have spent this entire deep dive analyzing how a rudimentary English vocabulary lesson inadvertently mapped out a masterclass in executive functioning and daily management. But there is an even deeper layer here regarding the vocabulary itself. This raises an important question. The source material introduces very specific words to define the rhythm of a day. Words like recharge, regroup, unwind, and the metaphor of the reset button. Right. If our daily routines are truly shaped by the psychological labels we use to describe them, how might consciously changing your own personal vocabulary rewire the way you experience your life? For instance, if you choose to label a mandatory afternoon break a recharge instead of an interruption, how does that change your stress levels?
That is a subtle but incredibly vital shift. If you label it an interruption, the implication is that you are a victim of your schedule and you naturally resent the break. But if you label it a recharge, the implication is that you are the architect of your schedule and you welcome the break as a tool. Just changing the label completely changes the framing of the habit.
It really does.
Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. We know your time is a finite resource, and we appreciate you spending it with us, exploring the hidden executive wisdom inside a simple conversation about daily routines. Take these concepts, think critically about the vocabulary you use to define the friction in your own day, and see how you can build a framework that puts you firmly back in control of your energy. Until next time, take care.